CEO of Maker Kids. Just waiting for some slides. While we're waiting, what an epic dance performance, eh? Let's give them another round of applause. Here we go. Okay, so today I'm going to talk about career planning by design and the power of you. So first I'm going to tell you a little bit about my background. There we go. So Maker Kids runs camps, programs, and parties on coding, robotics, and Minecraft, attempting to empower the leaders of tomorrow and help kids move from being consumers to creators. And we've had kids featured in magazines, starting businesses, and winning prizes from NASA. So we help kids realize what they're capable of and imagine how that might change their lives in the future. I also wrote a book called How to Figure Out What to Do with Your Life Next, which is going to be published next year with Dunder & Press. And I also wrote an article in Forbes that was about career planning, which I'm going to talk more about. So today I'm going to talk about three main things: my story and how to innovate yourself in your career, a process for how to figure out what to do with your life next, and how to prototype your career and pursue your passions, and then the future and how we can prepare ourselves for it. So first I'll talk a little bit about my story and how to innovate yourself in your career. Because if you want to change the world, you should change yourself first. This is me at graduation from high school. I actually, during my high school graduation and my university graduation picture, I decided to wear scuba gear. So I was obviously a little bit of a, rebel. And I knew that when I was in high school, I wanted to do humanitarian work after graduation. And so I wasn't sure what school or what major to do for that, but I decided to study business because I thought I could apply it to anything. So I went to Queen's Commerce, and then at some point during Queen's Commerce, a lot of my friends were choosing corporate jobs. So I thought, maybe I should choose a corporate job. So that's what I did. And here I am in my corporate job, but I quickly found myself dissatisfied. I didn't feel like I was making a difference or doing that humanitarian type work that I was thinking of in high school. And I didn't know what to do. I was really stressed, I felt a little depressed, but I couldn't figure out what to do next. And upon further research, I actually realized that over 80% of people are dissatisfied with their jobs, and 20% are actually hostile towards their employers. And I was one of those. And it turns out that dissatisfaction in jobs is a huge issue. There's hundreds of billions of dollars lost in productivity annually, as well as there's lower levels of innovation. These are two graphs. On the top, innovation, and on the bottom, job dissatisfaction. And you can see they both go down at the exact same time. If you feel successful at work, you're twice as likely to be happy. So it's really important to find something that you love, and you can do that starting today. In my opinion, this is the biggest issue of our time, because if we want to make a dent on some of the world's biggest grand challenges, it's really hard to do that when you're not satisfied in your career. And you can help solve this starting with your own career choices. So I didn't know what I wanted to do next, but my mom said, hey, why don't you check out California? It has Stanford, startups, Google. Maybe you could find something that you might like. So I visited there during my corporate job, and I did really like it. And then a couple months later, I ended up quitting my job and booking a one-way ticket to California to try and figure out what I wanted to do next. I started cold emailing founders and CEOs, as well as professors, to meet with them and ask them, hey, how did you figure out what to do with your life, in hopes that that might help me figure out what to do with mine. One of the first people that I met with was a professor named John Krumboltz at Stanford University. He teaches career counselors how to do career counseling, very meta. And I said, hey, John, I don't really know what to do with my life. Can you help me figure it out? And he said, well, I can't tell you how to figure out what to do with your life, but maybe what you could do is make a list of all the different things you're interested in and then try them out in small ways. So that's what I did. I started emailing a lot of different companies and asking them if I could meet with them or shadow with them to see if I might like the work that they were doing. And I was surprised at the number of people that said yes. I was able to meet with the founders of Airbnb and Square, shadow with the CEO of Kiva, and go to a lot of different talks and visit lots of companies, including the Stanford Design School, where I also shadowed. And from there, looking backwards, I actually developed a bit of a process for how to figure out what to do with your life next. And of course, this is an ongoing process, because even if you figure out today, here's what I want to do for the next few years, a few years from now, you might want to try something different and start a process again. This is the article I wrote for Forbes. It ended up being titled by the editors, How I Figured Out What I Wanted to Do with My Life. And it's since had over 1.5 million views, which is a lot higher than the average Forbes article. And when we dug into this to figure out why, we realized that it was because a lot of people are Google searching the term, what do I do with my life? And hundreds of people actually started emailing me after the article to ask more about the process. So that was when I realized I wanted to share more about the process through the book and speaking engagements like this. So this is a semi-scientific approach to decision making, using principles from Stanford Design School, Quantified Self, Maker Movement, Lean Processes, amazing companies like Google, design thinking, amazing founders like Peter Thiel, and you can apply it to big decisions in life, like choosing which school or which university to go to. It uses principles from the Stanford Design School design process, which is accept, empathize, define, ideate, prototype, and test. And here's the basic steps. And I'm going to go into each one in more detail. Understand current research, cast a net by knowing yourself and knowing your options, narrow your options, do a design process, including with your options, identifying what minimum viable commitments you can try to see how much you would like a certain career, prototype, test, and then measure those experiences, narrow them down, and repeat this until you have your top 3 options. Then identify what's necessary, make yourself the best candidate, apply and accept the best offer, and then repeat the process as necessary. And notice that as I'm going through these steps, this is a very targeted approach versus spray and pray, where you're applying to every company you can find and just taking what you can get. So it's really great in terms of doing research to look at the key tools like books and articles on the topic category of choice, in this case, careers. These are some of my favorite books about career selection. Startup of You, Designing Your Life, Zen and the Art of Making a Living, and The Monk and the Riddle. And from there, you can come to certain conclusions about what the best practices are in the area that you're researching. I found that a great career is made up of the intersection of 4 things: what you like to do, what you're good at, what the world needs, and what will make money. And the career can be viewed in 3 ways. First, a means to an end. For example, I work to make money. Second, as a stepping stone to a better career. For example, I'm becoming a paralegal so that I can become a lawyer. And the third is a calling, where you believe that you were called to do this career, and this is a part of your meaningful contributions to the world. That's how I choose to view it. And I think that finding a great career is made up of 3 elements. First, confidence to believe that you can find a great career. Second, skills and knowledge to help you do that. And third, opportunities and connections to help you actually secure that career. When I was doing my research, I was part of the Singularity University program at NASA, and they shared that there's at least 8 grand challenges in the world, and they encouraged us to pick one to focus our career on. These are global health, water, energy, environment, food, education, security, and poverty. And I decided that education was the most important to me because I thought it could level up all 7 of the other areas. So the next step is to cast a net. You can go broad and expand your possibilities and go shallow and not deep by investigating a lot of things before you hone in on a couple key ones. And at this stage, you don't want to take any possibilities off the table. It's made up of 2 parts: getting to know yourself better, and also knowing your options. And the output of this step is to have the answers to some deep questions and to have a list of potential career options. The question is, how can you choose a role, a school, etc., if that's right for you if you don't know yourself? And you might be thinking, well, clearly I know myself. I've been living with myself for however many years, but are you sure you really know yourself? It's hard when there's so many incoming signals coming at us, like social media, to actually know what we want. And not just the answers that you read in a book somewhere, but the answers that are really true for you. And there's a lot of cool tools that we can use to get to know ourselves better, including journaling, alone time, digital detoxes, substance detoxes, meditation, 360-degree review where you get input from people around you about the skills that you have, personality tests, counselors and coaches, books, articles, and videos with questions and exercises that prompt self-reflection, and I also have a number of questions that I'm going to share with you that you can use. Let's talk a little bit about some of them. So meditation is a really great tool because with so many incoming inputs coming at us, it's hard to actually focus in on what do I want. So meditation is a great way to let those thoughts bubble up to the surface and know what you want. The next one is digital detoxes. It's easy to go online and look at other people's careers and think they look super happy and therefore I will be happy in that career. But what's key to remember is things like Instagram are really just a highlight reel. And you can't actually know if you would be happy in a certain career until you try it in at least a small way. And the next one is journaling. It's another great way to help things bubble up to the surface in terms of what you want, especially if you do it in the morning when you first wake up before you start to receive inputs from other people. Here are some questions that I found really helped me. In terms of what you love, what did you love to do when you were a child? What are you doing when you feel most alive? And what topics do you love Googling? In terms of what you can offer, what are some of the challenges that you've faced? And how can you parlay the strengths that you've built from those challenges to help other people with similar challenges? And what do you do without being paid for, just because you love it? And in terms of what you need, what are your core values ranked from 1 to 5? To you, what is work and what is the meaning of work? And how much money do you want or need? Keeping in mind that past a certain level of income, increases in salary make no measurable impact on happiness, according to studies. Then in terms of how you want to help the world, how do you wish the world could be different? And what kind of legacy do you want to leave? And then from there, you can hone in on the characteristics of your ideal next step. What are you looking for in an opportunity in terms of salary, hours, time off, location, size of company, and culture? So just to share a bit about my journey so you can see an example of this, I realized that I love creating, performing, writing, and making. I could offer organizing in-person gatherings, writing, communicating, marketing, making, and leadership. I needed to be near my family and to make a good living, and how I wanted to help the world was by helping more people find and pursue careers that are a good fit for them, and also to influence more people to choose a career that makes a positive impact. And I knew that I wanted a small team and flexible hours. From there, you can expand your options by brainstorming ideas of careers or schools and make a list of options that you might like, including careers with assumptions like, I'm not sure if I could do this. For example, if you're not sure if you could qualify to be an engineer, you can still include that on the list because you can test that assumption later. You can find different career options. There's so many out there, from places like Google, books, career counselors, friends, blogs, personality test results, job boards, career pages, trends, and thinking of what careers that you could invent. So from there, I realized that the list of careers that I might potentially be interested in included joining a startup, starting a startup, joining a nonprofit, or starting a nonprofit, being a venture capitalist, or doing international development work. And I realized that one of the key questions that I was interested in was how can we increase human potential? Because I believe that's necessary in order to get more real-world innovations, because the jobs of tomorrow don't exist today. One of the things that I got into while I was doing my exploration was something called making. I started attending adult maker spaces, which had things like 3D printers and laser cutters, and some folks taught me how to do things like use wearable technology to make a bracelet that lights up. And this was really encouraging to me, and I felt like that was a really interesting thing for other people to learn too. I love this quote from Steve Jobs that says, when you grow up, you tend to get told the world is the way it is, and your life is just to live your life inside the world. Try not to bash into the walls too much, try to have a nice family, have fun, and save a little money. But that's a very limited life. Life can be much broader once you discover one simple fact. Everything around you that you call life was made up by people that were no smarter than you, and you can change it, you can influence it, you can build your own things that other people can use. Once you learn that, you'll never be the same again. And I started to think, how would it change the world if kids started to realize that? And I realized that what I wanted to do is innovate learning for the next generation, because the best way to predict the future is to create it. And I love this quote from Paul Graham that says, always produce is also a heuristic for finding the work that you love. If you subject yourself to that constraint, it will automatically push you away from things you think you're supposed to work on towards things you actually like. Always Produce will discover your life's work the way water, with the aid of gravity, finds the hole in your roof. So if you keep producing things like blogs, you will help find what you want to do with your life. The next step is to narrow your careers down a bit. So you can cross out the careers that you can't do for practical limitation reasons or won't do. For example, if you're morally against them or not willing to move for them. And you can identify careers that you might not be able to do based on assumptions, cross-referencing your results from the Know Thyself questions. So for example, I realized that for venture capital, there was an assumption that I could be a venture capitalist, but I wasn't sure if that was true or not. And for international development work, I realized it was too far from my family for my comfort, so I decided to cross that off my list. Then you can move from reflection to action through the following steps, and I'm going to talk about each more of them a little bit in depth. So now that you've defined your list of current career options, you can identify how to learn more about them in the most low commitment way possible through something called minimum viable commitments, which I'll talk about, and starting with the most exciting option first. Then you can prototype and test by participating in each of them fully, and every experience is valuable. You want to fail fast so that you can move on to other things you might like more. Then you can measure by documenting your experience with ratings, narrow it down to remove options that you've ruled out, and repeat by cycling through this cycle here, deepening your commitment as warranted and adding new options as they come up. So here, as I mentioned, I removed international development work and I narrowed to these 5 options. So then you can test them, prototype and test them through minimum viable commitments. Well, what are those? Those are the lowest commitments possible to help you learn about a specific career or option and help you get to the next level. You can choose them in advance or as you go along and deepen your commitment at each level. So here's some examples, moving from less information and commitment to more. Books, media browsing, school and college classes, company videos and classes, company info sessions, workshops, conferences and trade shows, informational interviews, virtual shadowing, in-person shadowing, internships, and jobs. So what I chose was I was going to read articles about the companies and jobs that I was interested in, watch talks about them, do informational interviews where I met with people working in those jobs and asked them questions about them. I was going to shadow for 1 day at each place I was interested in, and then once I found the ones that I was most interested in, shadow for 5 days. And to arrange these minimum viable commitments, you can be bold. Find or guess people's email addresses, compliment them, establish credibility or social proof by mentioning what you've done so far in life, offer them something of value in return, and you'd be surprised who's actually willing to meet with you. And shadow experiences can be amazing. So this is a sample email that I sent to one of the founders of a company called Mint with some of the key aspects of it bolded. Then once you've found the prototype experiences, you should participate fully in them and suspend judgment, worry, or doubt. And be prepared to rate your feelings and performance afterwards, and then find ways to test your assumptions and track results. So for example, I had the venture capital option with the assumption that I could get into it, and the results that I found was yes, I could. And here's an example way of how to rate your options. So I have my options along the top, and then down the left, the different factors that I was most interested in considering, like how good I was at it, how much I liked it, and so on. And I realized here, for example, that working at a nonprofit didn't meet my minimum score level, so I was going to cross that off. And it's different for everyone, remember. And then you can tally your scores at the end of each round, and not all rounds eliminate options. And then you can also add new options at each step. So for example, I added author as a potential career, and I've chosen to do now a multifaceted career that includes author as part of my career. And as I was exploring, I realized that one of the things that I cared most about was children, because if you make a change with a child, it can change the course of their life and change how they might act as an adult. In fact, the founders of Apple, Google, and Spanx all had access to technology as kids and formative experiences that changed their lives. So then before repeating the process, you can evaluate the last round and see if there's anything that you wanted to change. And deepen your commitment at each level until you reach your top 3 career options. And if an option is too broad to be actionable, like start a startup, you can repeat these steps to narrow it down to something like, I want to start a makerspace for kids, or maker kits for kids, or an online maker learning platform. Those are the options I was considering. And then you can repeat the process as necessary for other aspects of the choice. For example, if you know you want to start a startup, you could repeat the process with different startups to choose which one. So now, the next step is securing the job you want. So you can identify what's necessary to be a successful candidate for each of the top 3 choices using information you learned during your prototyping and testing. And then you can make yourself the best candidate by building your portfolio, teaching yourself the skills necessary to succeed, and finding executive education opportunities. And you might be thinking, oh, it's too early to start thinking about these things. I'm just in high school right now. But actually the decisions that you make today will have a really big impact on your career going forward, and it's a lot easier to try and find something you're interested in now than trying to make a huge pivot later on in your career. So it's best to try and find something that you're the most satisfied with as you can today, and then you can make small changes over time. Then you can apply and accept the best offer by sending applications that wow them, not just a basic resume and cover letter. Then repeat the process as necessary, for example, if you want to change or as new opportunities come up. So using this process was how I got to what I'm doing now, which is running Maker Kids. When I first got started with it, we were in a basement teaching tons of different technology, and now we've honed into the 3 topics we're teaching: coding, robotics, and Minecraft. This is a look at what our spaces look like, and we've started franchising as well, so other people can open their own Maker Kids locations. And it really shows how self-education can lead to your career selection. When I was at the Stanford Design School shadowing, one of my projects was to make this graphic, which included all the different supplies that they put in their proto bins, they call them, for people to use. And now we have something that looks like that at Maker Kids. Lastly, I want to talk about the future and how we can prepare ourselves for it. I love this quote from Disney, which says that times and conditions change so rapidly that we must keep our aim constantly focused on the future. And there's a lot of different grand challenges out there, in addition to the ones I mentioned at the beginning, such as learning, education, happiness, and mental health. And how can you work on solving these with your career? It's great to connect your career to one of the sustainable development goals in order to do this, such as poverty, hunger, and water. Then how can you think about the different exponential technologies that are out there, like programming, coding, and robotics, and use these to help solve grand challenges? How can you stay on top of key trends in your career, like community, quantified self, customization, and personalization? And also, how can you continually develop some of the transformational practices out there, like entrepreneurship, design thinking, and leadership? Finally, how can you continually build some of the key soft skills of the future, including confidence, social skills, and a positive relationship with technology, as well as emotional intelligence? I love this quote from this circuit board here that says, "The world is a construction kit," and I really believe that. So what will you learn? What will you make? And what will you build? And we need heroes in order to solve the grand challenges of our time, and you folks are our heroes. As Steve Jobs said, make a dent in the universe, and this is what I invite you to do. To think, will you choose to be one of the people that makes a difference or not? I know that you will. So with that, I'd like to thank you and invite you to make something cool every day, and I look forward to seeing what you do to change the world. Thanks very much. And now I think we have a couple short minutes for questions here. So who has questions? Things that you're thinking about in your career? No question is a stupid question. You can ask anything. Yeah, right here. Sure, so the question, I'll just repeat the question so everyone can hear it. I talked about applying with something more than just a basic resume and cover letter. What would be an example of that? So you could add a video, for example, of yourself talking about why you're a great fit for the company. It's something that really doesn't take that much time to make. but when employers receive it, for example, I do a lot of hiring for my company, and when someone sends me an application that includes a video that they've made custom to my company, it immediately moves their application to the top of the pile because I know that they're really interested, otherwise they wouldn't have taken the time to build a video. So making a video is one of them. Having a personal website that includes a portfolio of things that you've built and sharing that link with them is another. And then even if you want to, this is like taking it a step further, do something small, like a small project of how you could add value to the company. So for example, if you're applying for a graphic design position at a company, maybe you want to make a graphic design for that company and send that to them. And now you don't have to do this for every job that you're applying to, but the ones that you're really passionate about, that you really want to get, would be great to do that for. And then lastly, you can also try and find a mutual connection through something like LinkedIn to see if you know anyone at the company or if you know someone who knows someone, and ask them to do an informational interview, because that can really help move your application to the top of the pile because you have a mutual connection in common. Next question. Yep. This information will indeed be in my book, yes. And if anyone wants to email me for a draft of the book, you can email me right here, jen@makerkids.com, and my ask would just be that if you have any feedback on it, I would really love to hear it because that would help me modify the book going forward. Other questions? Next question, yeah? Okay, do you mean, so the question was about ways that you could find jobs or opportunities, is that right? And are you asking for jobs that you could do during high school, or just thinking about jobs in the future, what places you could look? Okay. Okay, sounds good. So some places you could look for job opportunities as a high schooler. You could look on Indeed, you could look at your guidance counselor office about different co-op opportunities that are out there. You can look at companies that are doing the Canada Summer Jobs Grant. You could search for the Canada Summer Jobs Grant. That's a grant that allows employers to hire students and get the government to pay half of the salary during the summer. So companies that are using the Canada Summer Jobs Grant are automatically looking for students because that's the way that they get the grant. You can also look on LinkedIn and Indeed, if I didn't say that already. And then you can actually position yourself, like although you're in high school, it's sometimes easy to think, well, I'm in high school, so maybe I can't get the job that I want. But there's actually high schoolers out there that are doing amazing career opportunities, and you can position yourself in such a way that you can achieve those. For example, we've hired many high schoolers, and I actually had a high schooler who, really impressed me with his application. He had, more than just a resume or cover letter. He had the video, he wowed me at the interview, and then he was actually more productive and successful than a lot of my adult employees at the time. And I then gave him opportunities. For example, I had a speaking engagement that I couldn't attend, and I invited him to do the speaking engagement on my behalf. So he did that speaking engagement on a panel with the VP of Education from Pearson Education and some other folks. He didn't mention that he was in high school until the Q&A period, and then everyone in the audience gasped because he was so professional that no one even realized that he was in high school. And we also brought him to an event that we were doing in New York City, so he flew down for that and helped us. And there's a number of other examples of companies hiring high schoolers and high schoolers adding a huge amount of value to the companies, because you have like an uncapped amount of potential at this point. That's one of the key differences that I see that's really valuable, because once you become an adult, let's say you have a mortgage and a family, you're sort of more limited in terms of what options and ideas you're willing to put forward. But as a high schooler or a young person, you have a lot more potential and are willing to take more risks. And the way that that high schoolers can get great opportunities like that is through the means that I mentioned, like sending an application that's more than just a resume and cover letter, and then in terms of what to add to your resume and cover letter, thinking about all the different extracurriculars that you've done and positioning those as opportunities and as experiences that could help you add value, and then even thinking about what projects have you done that have been really successful in school that you could highlight as part of a portfolio. Yeah. Next question. Oh, I think we're actually running out of time here. So thank you guys so much and really appreciate it. Hope that was helpful.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. It's so inspiring. We're so thankful to have such wonderful female role models like yourself. Can we give her another big round of applause?